Hand signal is Hawaiian.
Okay, greetings, one and all. We are on the 16th day of the holy month of Elul, 5777, counting down to the 5778. God's help, Holy Apple. It's not Super Wednesdays, it's Super Thursday, right? So I don't think that we messed up here. We know the date and we know the day. Okay, a quick summary. The subject of this holy Elul Zman is what's not holding back the redemption. What's not holding back the redemption? This class, this is the second part. This is really the real second part. I know that the class was divided up into 3 parts, so it's like part 4, but it's really part 2. Okay, now this class is a rebuttal to a class by a very important rabbi, a very special person, and he gave a certain class about 2 months ago on the subject that I'm refuting. So we'll give a very short summary of what happened last week for those of you that were on vacation or missed it. Okay, the rabbi mentioned in his class a few months ago that the Jewish people are ready for redemption. Yeah, you know, I don't know if you've ever been in Tel Aviv or Chicago, New York, St. Louis. But I guess the Jewish people are ready for redemption. Got it? Yeah. I know that in Israel we're ready for, some people are ready for soccer on Shabbos. I mean, that I know. You know, we might have now soccer games in Israel on the Holy Shabbos. So I know that we're ready for soccer. And I know that most people are ready for the NFL begins or has begun. One of the two. But I didn't know, okay, so soccer, yes, NFL, right. Okay, the Jewish people are ready for the redemption. Okay. What's holding back the redemption according to this very special person? What's holding back the redemption is the fact that the Jewish people must go out to the world, to the nations of the world, and present to the people of the world, the nations of the world, 7 commandments of Noah. This is exactly what is holding back the redemption. It is the Jewish people going out of our ghettos, of our neighborhoods, of our settlements, and greeting, opening our doors, opening up ourselves to the nations of the world, conversations with them, relations with them, in order to try to convince them to observe 7 commandments of Noah. This is holding back the redemption. Very interesting theory. However, the hundreds of sources that we have, in Jewish sources that we have, there are hundreds of sources that tell us what can hasten the redemption. There are hundreds of sources that tell us what is stopping the redemption. I heard a great Torah, maybe from the book Avnei Shoam. We know that in this week's portion of the week, how many curses are there in this week's Parsha, Ki Tavo? We know that there are 98 curses. Okay, 98 curses. And is that number special? Does it have meaning? We know that everything in Judaism, there's a tremendous treasure, a wealth behind all ideas, concepts. So if the number 98 is just not haphazard, that's the way it fell, 98. So the Avnei Shoam says an unbelievable Torah. Why are we suffering in this exile? We know that the curses, the blessings and curses in the portion of Bechukotai, those are read before the holiday of Shavuot. the portion, the blessings and curses that we read before the new year in the portion called Kitavo, so that has 98, and in the previous blessings and curses in Bechukotai, that has 49. That is 49. So the Avnei Shalom says we are in exile because of needless hatred. Hatred, okay, needless in Hebrew is what? Chinam. How? In the numerical value of the word chinam is how much? 98. Once again, chet is 8, right? Okay, chet. Nun is 50, 58. Then you have mem is 40. 58 and 40, 98. Cheve, we're sitting here. We're not dancing around the room here. We're not going through the ceiling, through the windows here. Unbelievable Torah. There are 98 curses. Why? Because we still have we still unfortunately have in our hearts hatred, needless hatred towards other people. And that's why we're still suffering the 98 curses, right? The chinam, because of our needless hatred, then we are suffering the 98 curses. So everything has a tremendous wellspring of spirituality behind numbers and behind everything in Judaism. Okay, so back to what we said. We know that the Torah does teach us many, many sins, transgressions, which are holding back the redemption. That we know. I just explained one of them. Sinat chinam, needless hatred, 98. But nowhere does it say that's what's holding back the redemption is because of the fact that the Jewish people are not going out and opening themselves up for relationships with the nations of the world to try to convince them to observe 7 commandments of Noah. So that was part number 1. Number 2, this tremendous righteous rabbi that gave the class, he also mentioned that the number 1 principle, the number 1 subject that Chabad speaks about is, of course, the redemption in Messiah. The number 2 subject, according to this rabbi, was the topic of bringing the 7 commandments of Noah to the nations of the world. I investigated this because I don't remember really. I mean, I remember in Chawara, maybe Mike would remember this, maybe Arya remembers this. There was many, many years ago, perhaps maybe 15 or 20 years ago, in the middle of Chawara, in Arabic, there was a sign with a picture of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, and in Arabic, all of the 7 commandments of Noah on a billboard in Chawara, like on the way between Holy Apple, Tapuach, and Elon More, where I live. There's an Arab village. It's called, actually now looks like a city. There's even KFC there. For those of you that are ignorant out there that don't know what KFC is, it's Kentucky Fried Chicken. Yeah, baby. Kentucky, yeah, down south. Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's finger-licking good. Yeah. Okay. It even has KFC in Chawara there, okay? They're really moving on up to Chawara, yeah. Deluxe apartment. Anyways, so I have seen once in a while the Chabad soldiers going out and handing out 7 commandments and all, but it's like 0.000 point, maybe 1% of what I've seen them do, like on holidays, and go to old age homes and to visit the sick and to hand out these donuts on Hanukkah, and to during the holidays, they give you the mitzvah to shake, like shake, shake, shake. Shake, 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 shake your lulav. Yeah? Got it? Anyone that doesn't understand it, it's too late for you. You missed the boat.
I got it.
Okay, at least somebody, so you have to be a certain age to get some of my lines here. You have to be over a certain age to get some of the lines here. Okay, so I did an investigation here. I asked various managers of like Chabad institutions, like not just your average Chabad guy, but like a person that's responsible, like the CEO of Chabad, and they said this is not true. It is not the second most spoken about subject that the Rebbe of Lubavitch of Chabad spoke about. Not at all. Okay, so my gut feeling was that it was not true, and it turns out that when I investigated it, they reassured me that it's not so. Okay, so that's not so either. Okay, our next point that we mentioned last week, this is still our short summary. We haven't started new material here, we're just still on the short summary. Our next subject was, we know that the Jewish people are a nation of priests. We know that according to the prophet Isaiah or Yeshaya Navi, that the Jews are a light unto the nations. So the question should arise in every person's mind, what exactly does that mean? A nation of priests or a light unto the nations. What does that mean? Does that mean that the Jewish people have to go out and, I don't like using the word, but we'll just throw it out anyways to really stick the point here, to missionize the world? In order for them to receive our light, do we have to go out and embrace the nations of the world, and therefore when we have a relation with them, then they'll see the light, so to speak? Or is this an inner spiritual Jewish perfection of ourselves, of our souls and our bodies? And then once we, on the inside, have perfected ourselves, our families, our communities, this itself creates a tremendous uplifting of the entire universe. Which means, in simple terms, if the Jewish people are doing what God wants by ourselves, on our own, segregated from the nations of the world, this has a tremendous spiritual effect on the entire world. This is uplifting, this elevates all nations of the world. That's how we are a light. Not by embracing, not by relations, not by hugging and kissing, not by having dinner together. No. By us being the best Jews that we can, by us becoming a nation of priests, and there afterwards we have a tremendous light that will benefit the entire world without us stepping out of our boundaries. Okay, we spoke last week about one of the most important concepts in life. Forget this specific class of life, that the tremendous educator, one of the great educators of our day in the land of Israel, his name is Rabbi Yehuda Richter, and he tells us a tremendous law. The law is that, believe it or not, a person is limited. We have limited strength, energy that we have. If we use it in the right places, then we could go on further and have more influence on other people. But there is a priority list. There is a list of priorities. Let's bring it down to earth. If we spoke about that, if I have energy, I have strength, first I must love myself. Okay? If I have extra energy left over after I've picked up my own self, no problem. Okay, now you want to get married? You have excess energy, strength, patience, love for somebody else? Okay, besides yourself? Okay. now spread it to your wife. Okay, now we have husband and wife. We have a little bit more energy that God gave us. Well, we've picked up ourselves. We've also brought in someone else in our life to kind of take care of. We still have enough strength left in us, and patience and kindness. We still have some left. And then we go out now and let's have a family. So now I'm spreading my energy, myself, beyond myself to my wife, beyond myself and my wife to children. Wow, you're Superman? You got some more energy? Got some more gas left? Okay, let's do it inside our community. You know what? I'm going to do volunteer work in the Holy Apple in Tapuach. I want to help the elderly in Tapuach. Whatever, I want to help the youth in Tapuach. Okay, but we have to make sure that I have enough energy, strength, happiness for myself, for my wife, enough time for my wife, enough time for myself, my wife, my kids, and my community. Wow, you're like really Superman? You have more energy? Okay, we could go out and even be beyond our community for the people of Israel. We could go out and protest and fight for the Jewish people on campuses, whatever. Because you know what? Because thank God, Hashem has given us, God has given us health and stamina and strength and energy and positivity. And so I'm able to spread out to many, many people. Okay, now what happens in this world? What happens in this world is some people are, what do? They take their minimal amount of strength, patience, energy, and who do they give it to? Their dogs, or their cats, or their pets. And now, after they've exerted their energy and patience and strength and love and kindness to the animals, when it comes to people on two legs, all of a sudden they become kind of like, excuse the expression, mad dogs or mad cats. They don't have any patience for people. They don't have any love for people. Their whole world, there was a guy, if I'm not mistaken, in Houston, Texas, like the social media was like jumping down this guy's throat because I think that he didn't save his dog or something. There was like some guy didn't save a dog. So people were like sending him nasty letters, or, you know, you should have like saved your dog instead of yourself, you know, it's like really getting crazy over here. Save your dog instead of yourself. What's going on, poor fellow, you know? That's what's happening. We only have a limited amount to spread around. And God tells us the priority list. Yourself, your wife, your husband, your kids, your community, Jewish people. After that, if there's more time, the world. Okay. Now, we left off last week with a half of Rav Dessler. Half of it. Rav Dessler says that today in our times, we see that people have reversed the order of priorities. What's the priority according to Rabbi Dessler in his unbelievable books, Michtav Eliyahu? He writes the order. First, a person has to sanctify God's name within himself. A person has to become himself a sanctification of God's name, right? If I'm cursing, if I'm cursing people out left and right, I myself am not a sanctification of God's name. I have to tell you a great story. Not many people know this story. But I was once in a car with a holy, holy Jew, holy rabbi. May Hashem avenge his blood. His name is Rabbi Lieberman, originally from New York, and we were neighbors in Elon Moreh. he was a very, very special person, and I don't use the term lightly. He was one of these special souls where you have a handful in a generation. A very, very spiritual person. And I had the merit to learn with him in the afternoons in Joseph's tomb in the city of Nablus, Shechem. We would learn every afternoon together. As first time that I was with him, we were going by one of these refugee camps called Askar, and the Arabs threw rocks at Rabbi Lieberman's car. So Rabbi Lieberman wasn't your average Jew, and he wasn't from the IDF, and he was definitely not one of the Egged bus drivers that receive orders that if they throw rocks at you, you keep on trucking. You know that expression, keep on trucking? It's from the IDF, it's from the government, it's from Egged. Keep on trucking. Yeah, keep on trucking. But with Rabbi Hillel, there was a question here of desecration of God's name, Jews getting stoned, or a sanctification of God's name, of Jews stopping the car and going after the Arabs and trying to capture them. So Rabbi Lieberman stops the car, and now, now it's a race for the fit. So we're running and stuff like that towards the refugee camp, and Baruch Hashem, there are some Jews still left in shape. There are a few Jews left in shape, and we were able to, with God's help, we were able to capture the rock throwers, and we drag them. We drag them back to Rabbi Hillel's car, and we taught them the 614th commandment, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Thou shalt not throw rocks at Jews. We taught them that 614th commandment in the car, and then we dropped them off in the police station in the city of Shechem, in the city of Nablus. Of course, the police officers asked how come they look kind of like beaten up and bloodied, but said when they threw the rocks, you fall down. They were running away from us, so you fall down and you hit yourself on rocks. So that's why they looked bloodied, etc. I get back to the car. Everything by me is cool. And then Rabbi Hillel, he tells me the following statement. Folks, hold on, put on your seatbelts. We have no insurance here still. We're still looking for Mike to organize the insurance here so we can fall off our seats, go through the windows, travel through the ceilings here. Okay, so Rabbi Lieberman says the following. He tells me, he says, Yehuda, I know that when we have to do these kinds of things, we get upset and it bothers us, and it's a desecration of God's name what they're doing, throwing rocks in the land of Israel, the Jewish people. And sometimes we get upset and we use words that we should not use. I said when I was dragging these guys, so I was using a few words, adjectives, which I'm not going to go into right now, to talking to these Arabs. He says, even though we're upset, rightfully so, we have to make sure that we keep our mouths pure. No foul language. That has stuck in my mind all these years. That has stuck in my mind, this is a story of 20 years ago, about 20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago. And whenever I'm about to open my mouth, when I'm like really heated with the enemies of the Jewish people, I hear Rabbi Lieberman's voice talking to me that even though we're involved in these kinds of cases with Arab terrorists and these lowlives, we must make sure that we keep our mouths pure and not use foul language. Okay, so a person himself has to sanctify God's name, Rabbi Dessler says. First we have to practice on ourselves. We ourselves have to be, right? If someone's smoking, okay, how could he tell other people not to smoke? I mean, you're smoking. So you're not an example. If you don't smoke, so you could tell people not to smoke. If a person goes and goes to pray in a synagogue with 10 people or more, okay, then he's an example. But if we pray in our houses, I'm not talking about if we're sick or we have no choice, but then we're not yet at the level of sanctification of God's name for ourselves. So we still have to work harder for ourselves. Okay, Rabbi Dessler says, okay, we've worked it out. We've ourselves have purified ourselves, sanctified ourselves. Okay, next level. Next level, he says, within our community, 10 Jews or more. Okay, now let's cause a sanctification of God's name. Let's spread our light. Let's spread our energy and our Torah to the community. You have even more strength left? Okay, now we're going to create a sanctification of God's name to the world. And Rabbi Dessler brings a case, so we should understand what we're talking about. We're not talking about embracing the nations of the world. Listen to the story. The story that Rabbi Dessler gave was a story in the Talmud where it talks about Rabbi Shimon ben Shaltach, who bought a donkey as form of transportation. When he received the donkey, so he was getting ready for one of his travels, and he noticed that there was a diamond or a precious stone hidden between the donkey and the saddle. So he asked one of his helpers, Rabbi Shimon ben Shaltach asked one of the helpers to return this to the Gentile that sold the donkey to, thank you, he sold the donkey to the rabbi. So once again, it says that Rabbi Shimon ben Shaltach, even though that's not the law, he wanted to go beyond the letter of the law, and he wanted to sanctify God's name in the eyes of the world. So he told one of his helpers, he said, go and return the stone. I bought a donkey, not the diamond. He caused a sanctification of God's name. Once again, not embracing, not sitting down for dinner, not drinking cheers with the nations of the world. He did a certain action which created a situation of sanctification of God's name. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. Saved by the bell. Okay, now listen to this, Rav Dessler. Now we're new. This is new stuff right now. Okay. Rav Dessler asked a question. How come we see in our times, this is 50 years ago already, what are we going to say today? Listen to his words, don't forget them. Why do we see today that the order has been changed? We see people going out to the nations of the world to create, quote-unquote, sanctification of God's name, or bringing the light unto the nations of the world. How come we see a reversal of order? Before people are sanctifying their own lives, before people are sanctifying the community, the Jewish community, all of a sudden we have skip, like we pass go, collect 200, like, we just skipped over about 10 places on the board, on the Monopoly board. Why do we see this? That's Rav Dessler's question. Why do we see this in our times? That people, their start point is going out, embracing the nations of the world to create a sanctification of God's name, quote unquote. And listen to his answer. The answer is the following. It's based on the words of the spiritual beginner, the startup of the ethic movement, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, who lived about 150 years ago. He says the following. People that reverse the order, They think they're sanctifying God's name. But the real energy, the real reason, it might even be subconscious that they're doing it, is to sanctify their own names. Shh, you got it. Rabbi Dessler, he comes out, one of these machine guns, just blows us away. In their mouths, they will tell us that they are bringing the light unto the nations. They are sanctifying God's name before the nations of the world, bringing the Torah to the nations of the world. They've reversed the order. They reversed the order. Why? Because they're really looking to sanctify their own names. Because you know how much PR you get when you're going around. I've heard so many times, wow, how those evangelistic Christians, how they love us. I wish that Jews would have respect for us like they do. I wish they would give us money I wish the Jews would give us donations like those Christians, those evangelists, missionaries, give us. Oh, how they accept us? They give us standing ovations in their churches. And when we speak in synagogues, who comes? Nobody shows up. So Rabbi Dessler tells us an unbelievable psychological secret. People that reverse the order of first giving to yourself, if you have more strength, give to your wife, more children, more community, more Jewish people, more the world, those that reverse the order, and we start going out to the nations of the world, tikkun, fixing the world, before we fix ourselves, before we fix the Jewish people. These people are looking for sanctifying their own names because there's a lot of money and a lot of honor and a lot of hugs and kisses and maybe even tears that these Jews receive when they reach out to the Christian audiences. And therefore, you know what they say, there's no business like Christian business. Holy Rav Dessler. Okay. Moving right along. We spoke about priorities. There's a sequence of events that has to take place in a person's life. You don't run a marathon. You don't run a marathon until you kind of do the warm-ups. That's boring, Warm-ups whoa, yeah, warming up. Let's get to the 20-mile run. Buddy, you're reversing the order. First we have to start slow. I remember a friend of mine in prison, he gave me this book about working out. Herschel Walker, hey, no extra charge. Herschel, I don't know where you are these days. There was a famous player. He was he was drafted into the baseball. He was drafted into football, maybe even another sport. Unbelievable guy, Herschel Walker. He wasn't Jewish. He was one of the brothers. Not a Jewish brother, but one of the brothers. Okay, now Herschel Walker, so he has a book, unbelievable book, that he wrote, compiled with a doctor. So it's Herschel Walker and a doctor. And they give you week by week how to get yourself, depending on what level you are, they give you a week by week program. And, I do the first day, and I say to myself, you're Yehuda Richter. You're you're a pretty athletic person, Yehuda. This is an embarrassment for you. It was like a 5-minute workout. 5-minute workout. This is a joke. Yehuda, remember 10 years ago, you used to run 15 kilometers? This is an embarrassment. I think you should just jump to the week number 55. No, it's not how you do it. You can't jump. If you jump, you fall on your face and it hurts. When you want to get into shape or anything in life, you go up slowly. The first week was 5 minutes. The next week was 7 minutes. The next week was 10 minutes. Slowly you build yourself up. Because if you jump, you're gonna really tear ligaments and you're gonna tear yourself apart. you're going to be injured. Okay, our next subject. What does it really mean? What does it mean? Somebody stops you on the street today and says, I want to know, what is this term, a light unto the nations? I want to know what it means. First of all, I hate to lay this on us, but most Jews have the term, pronounce the term incorrect. They say, or lagoyim. They say, as if they're quoting, we have to be the light unto the nations, or lagoyim. What is the verse? The verse appears in Isaiah 42:6. And it doesn't say, or lagoyim. They got it a little bit mixed up. We're talking today about people that are mixing up the order. Have one more mix-up. Not or lagoyim. I read the verse. Okay, it says, Vetnecha, I will give you, librit, as a covenant, leor goyim. Leor goyim. Not or lagoyim. Okay, leor goyim, a light unto the nations. What in the world does that mean? So once again, we have Isaiah 42, verse 6. So let's look at our standard, regular, top-notch Jewish commentators. What does this mean? Does this mean that we have to spread ourselves out, open up our doors, embrace the non-Jewish world, bring them the 7 commandments of Noah? Is that what it means to be a light of nations? To have relations with them, meetings with them, dinner, banquets, sports activities? Okay, so it is unanimously, if you look at the commentators on this verse, I'll just throw out a few. Radak. I'll throw out another one. Mitzudat David. I'll throw out another one. The Malbim, and the list goes on and on. This verse, to be a light unto the nations, is talking about when the Messiah comes. When the Messiah comes, the Messiah will create a situation where the Jewish people, or the Messiah and the Jewish people, are a light unto the nations. Not today on the 16th day of Elul, where we got to clean up our own acts. We have to clean up our family acts. We have enough problem with our own kids. We have to clean up our communities. We have to clean up the Jewish people's act. We got enough to do. We got enough on our heads. To be a light unto the nations, very true. A true Jewish concept. But you have to know what we're talking about. When the Messiah comes, He will turn to the nations of the world. At first there'll be a fight. It's not going to be so easy. To be a light, sometimes you got to fight your way through. Someone told me today in Florida, if you want, like a bottle of water's in Florida, they're getting ready for Irma. They're getting ready for the Hurricane Irma in Florida. So this woman was saying that she's been to 3 stores. She can't find a bottle of water. They're trying to stock up. So, sometimes, and she was saying that there were a lot of fistfights in the store, one person trying to get to food before the other person, so there's fistfights. So at first we will see that there will be the Messiah. He's not exactly going to be welcomed. Ahlan u'sahalan. Okay? Shalom aleichem. Bruchim aboim. No. It's going to be fighting. But eventually, the Messiah will bring the light unto the nations. Okay? That's what we're talking about. Rashi, on this verse, to be a light unto the nations, check this one out. This is very interesting. This one you never hear. Rashi says, what does it mean to be a light unto the nations? Each tribe is called a nation. Each of the 12 tribes, okay? Each of the 12 tribes, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, each one of them is called a nation within itself. So therefore, when you're supposed to be a light unto the nations, Rashi on this verse, he says, a light unto the other tribes. We're talking about within the Jewish community. To be a light amongst the Jewish community. A Jewish light amongst the Jewish community. Unbelievable Rashi. That you won't hear anywhere else. But even if the standard, we're talking about the times of the Messiah. Not for little Yehuda, who I have a minimal amount of time. I only have a small amount of time that I could give to my community. Because I'm busy during the day. You know? I'm busy during the day staying alive. Staying alive, yeah. Right? So, not little Yehuda Richter to go out to the big world and to stand on the corner, Manhattan, LA, downtown Los Angeles, Chi-Town, Chicago. Hey, come on over here. Hey, Jack, come on over. Tom, I want to talk to you, buddy. Let's have a little talk over here. Let's sit down here. Here, you want a drink? Let's go sit down at the bar. No. It doesn't mean Yehuda Richter. It means the Messiah. Messiah will do it. Okay. Next, our next stage. What in the world are we talking about? When we use the expression, nations of priests, a nation of priests, when we use the expression, a light unto the nations, correctly now, thank God now we know how to use it correctly. So when does this apply? Does that mean we go out? Or does that mean we create within ourselves a certain spiritual greatness which influences the entire world? Like the Messiah is a representative of the entire Jewish people. And he therefore goes out and influences eventually after the wars, after he's, beat out of the nations, then they finally see the light. Finally see the light. Okay, so let's go straight in to the Ramchal in the path of the righteous. We're on path of the righteous. The first chapter. We're on the 7th paragraph. Listen closely. Listen closely. Check it out. The Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the famous Kabbalist, he says the following, buried in the city of where? Does anybody ever been his grave? I'm a Kohen, yeah, but I know where he is. He's buried right next to Rabbi Akiva in Tiberias. Yeah, Tiberias. Up on the mountains, if you're ever there. Okay. Are we still on over here? We're okay? We're still going good? Are we still okay?
Let me see, I'll check.
See, a voice from heaven. Mike, don't leave us here. Are we okay?
We're at 42 minutes and 54 seconds.
And still counting.
Looks like that.
Wow. Listen, ever since you've taken over here, Mike, there's been a blessing here. Okay, the Ramchal says the following, folks. This world is a tremendous challenge to us. If we do God's will, if we use the world to do God's will. I make money. Why do I make money? I make money in order that I'm able to get married. Why do I get married? I get married so that I can have a family. Why do I have a family? I have a family in order that I could transmit the Torah, Judaism, to the next generation. Pass the torch to the next generation. I have money. You know why I make money? Because I want to, on Passover, I want to buy those, those round flying saucers that those Jews eat. What are they called? Matzahs, yeah. Those flying saucers? Phew, yeah, have one of those flying saucers, around your back. And phew, yeah. Those flying saucers, folks, it's not like you go to the sporting goods store and you buy one for $5. I mean, these are expensive. You gotta get some money to buy those. And there's people that eat those the whole week, 7 days. If you're outside the land of Israel, you're eating those suckers for 8 days. So you need the money. So if we use this world, if we use the material in order to spiritually benefit ourselves, our families, then listen what we do. Not only did we take the world, we passed the test. God gives us a test. Are we going to use the world for materialism, for the sake of materialism, for running away from God? Or are we going to use materialism in order to come closer to God? In order to put up a mezuzah, one of those things you put on your doorpost, you need a house. You know, if you don't have a house, you don't need one of those mezuzot. So you got to have a house first. In order to have a house, you got to have some little bit of income there. So this is a tremendous lesson. Listen to this. The Ramchal says, the rabbi says the following, that if we use the world correctly, not only do we elevate ourselves and our family, but we elevate spiritually the entire world. All spiritual worlds, not just our world that we know, not just our globe, but all the worlds. There are many, many worlds, spiritual worlds, that we are surrounded by. We're familiar with our little world, but there are many, many other worlds. And when we do the right thing, we uplift and elevate the entire worlds to a greater spiritual height. Yeah, little us, little us. Where do we see this? On the other hand, if we go and use materialism for the sake of materialism, we make money. Why? Because we want to buy fancy cars. For what? Not to take the cars to give classes, Torah classes, not to, take 50 people as hitchhikers in our car so they don't have to wait out in the 100-degree sun. No, that's not why I buy a car. I buy a car because I want to show off. I want to, show off to my friends that I'm somebody. I have this new, 5778 brand new model car. Okay, so when we do that, we bring ourselves down, our families, our communities, and the entire world. So folks, listen to what we're saying here. You want to be a light unto the nations? Great! Beautiful! You want to uplift the entire world? I'm with you. How do we do it? The Ramchal, Rabbi Moshe, tells us, improve yourself. Do Torah. Learn Torah. Do mitzvot. Do acts of kindness. Help others. Help Jews. This will elevate Joe. This will elevate Smith. This will elevate Billy. Yeah, people from far away. People you never met. People you will never meet. You know why they've somehow gone up a little bit in their lives? You know how they're a little bit above the water? You know how they got there? Yeah, it's you! You got it. It's because of you. I don't even know this guy. Never seen him in my life. That's true. But that's the way the world turns. As the world turns. That's the way Hashem set up the world. If we perfect ourselves, Jewishly, spiritually, once we perfect ourselves, it's not just perfecting ourselves. We cause a tremendous, tremendous spiritual benefit, light, to the entire world. People that would be in the gutter if it wasn't for the Jewish people. Today, they pull themselves out of the gutter. Who deserves a yashur koach? Who deserves more power to you? Yeah, the Jewish people that brought up the material world to more of a spiritual world. They use the material to become spiritual. And therefore they lift up the material world and it becomes a more spiritual place. That's how you influence the nations of the world. Take care of your own act. Clean up your own act. Okay, where do we see this coming into being? Jacob. Jacob goes and he goes to sleep. And all of a sudden, the rabbis, the sages tell us something very interesting. What in the world is going on? All these rocks, yeah, remember that in school? Remember the kindergarten teacher taught you that? All the rocks, what happens? They're all arguing. We want Jacob to put his head on my rock. Yeah? Every rock is saying, no, I want Jacob on my rock. And then this rock says, no, I want Jacob's head on my rock. What in the world is going on here? What in the world is going on? Did you ever see rocks talk? I mean, I know there's There's the Flintstones. Some of those Flintstones, they have like rock bottom, or some of the rocks talk. But usually rocks don't talk. What are the sages telling us? Folks, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, he says in the Path of the Just, he says the following. What does that mean? Because that Jacob was such a spiritual person, he succeeded in uplifting, elevating even the lowest of beings, the rocks. Rock, this like rock bottom, you know? Rocks are on the bottom. What's going on over here? You know, there's the plant kingdom, there's the animal kingdom, there's the human being kingdom, there's the people of Israel, and there's the inanimate objects that don't do anything. Jacob created a situation because he perfected himself spiritually. He was able. That's what the sages are telling us. This is not, you know, a fairy tale here. This is deep stuff. That Jacob was able to elevate even the rock, the inanimate kingdom. That's what he was able to do. If you look at what's happening in the world, why is the world going crazy? Look what's going on in Washington. Look what's going on. Open up your eyes. In Oregon. Look what's going on in Houston, Texas. In Los Angeles. Burbank, California. Look what's going on in the islands, in the Caribbean. Look what's going on in Florida. Look what's going on in Detroit. Who knows what's left? People say there's Jose coming afterwards. Why is the world going crazy? Look in the sky. There's flares. There's meteors. The sky is going crazy. There's an eclipse. Just 2 weeks ago, there was an eclipse of the sun. What in the world is going on over here? The world, okay, the world is acting. The world is shaking. Why? Because of the fact that we are impure. We are defiling ourselves, and the entire world is suffering. So therefore, the world, when the Jewish people are doing what we should be doing, learning Torah, doing the commandments, being a holy nation, being spiritual people, being kind, when we're doing what we have to do, so the world is doing what it has to do. But if the Jewish people, specifically the Jewish people, if we're not doing what God wants us to do, so not only do we bring ourselves down to the dumps, but we tear the entire world. We bring the entire world into a crazy place that we see today. The world, the order, is no longer. What we call Mother Nature is no longer. Okay? The world is in an upheaval because of the fact that we've contaminated the world. We've destroyed the world. Not only pollution destroys the world, not only did we destroy the world with our pollution, and because we don't care what happens after us, and we could pollute, and we could throw garbage, and we could do things and have our sewers go into the waters to contaminate the waters. And who gives? But also on a spiritual level. On a spiritual level, we've destroyed the world. We brought it down. And therefore we see today what we see. The world is shaking. So if we are the best Jews that we could be, we are influencing not only the nations of the world, we become a light unto the nations without talking to them, without embracing, without hugging them, without stepping in their churches. We become a light. They are elevated. They become better people. They think it's themselves, but it's not. It's the spirituality that the Jewish people create. That is elevating them. And not only them, but it elevates the entire world, the plants, the animals. Okay, now the Rabbi Chaim of the city of Volozhin, he writes in his tremendous book, Nefesh HaChaim, in the 3rd chapter, says the following: a Jew's thoughts, words, and deeds. Think about that. Not just deeds. Words. I said something. I said a word, a kind word to a person. Just a word. Pick somebody's spirit up by a word. Deeds. Even more so. He writes the following: if a Jew, by his thoughts, by his words, and by his deeds, he's able to uplift all the worlds that exist. Once again, not just our world. He elevates all the worlds that exist, and elevates them, and they become more spiritual, more holy. And the opposite is true. If a person has bad thoughts, if a person, bad words, using bad words, speaking lashon hara, speaking gossip against other people, speaking bad against other people. If a person's deeds are bad, okay, 3 levels here, then not only do we contaminate and pollute ourselves and bring ourselves down, but we bring all the universes down with us. Now, it says in Genesis that God created people in His image. This, once again, is a concept which is misunderstood, because let me lay this one on you lightly. God, He don't have no image. God does not have an image. He has no hands, no ears. It's not Santa Claus. So what does it mean? What does it mean that God created us b'tselem, as the world translates this, in His image? No, we are not in God's image, because God does not have an image. So what does it mean that God created us b'tselem? So Rav Chaim does us a favor, and he explains to us what this means. That we were created b'tselem. What is the image? What they translate image. It means that God is responsible for all forces in the world. This trait of having strength to be responsible and moving forces was given to mankind. Specifically, who in mankind? To the Jewish people. Once again, when we say God, we're talking about all-powerful being who is able to control destiny, life, all facets of life. God created us in that image, in that spiritual ability, that we too, by our thoughts, by our words, by our deeds, are able to move the world, the universes, people, create tremendous facts on the ground, to create tremendous spiritual benefits to our world. That's what it means that God created us in His image. God gave us the power that if we want to, if we keep the Torah, we do the mitzvot, we're kind, we watch our speech, we watch our thoughts, we too have tremendous power that influence entire worlds. God influences worlds, and if we go in His way, He gives us, to some degree, power also. That's what we're talking about. Now, Rav Chaim goes on to say the following, an unbelievable: who destroyed the temple? Okay, you're going to tell me that it was those gentiles that destroyed the temple. In the first temple, it was that evil guy. He was king of Babylonia. His name was Nebuchadnezzar. And in this time of the second temple, it was those evil guys. It was Titus and those evil Romans. So Rav Chaim comes in his book Nefesh HaChaim, right, the 3rd chapter, beginning of the 3rd chapter, and he says the following: whenever you see a burnt synagogue, when you see a burnt yeshiva, When you see a burnt temple, a destroyed temple, you know what destroyed it? Not what you think. It wasn't Jack. It wasn't Tom. It wasn't Dick and Harry. No. It wasn't Nebuchadnezzar. It wasn't Titus that destroyed the temple. What do you mean it wasn't? It says that in the Bible.